Imagine yourself standing in a small, windowless, octagonal chapel. Upon the walls hang several colossal canvases. They are neither familiar landscapes nor delicate portraits. Instead, they are vast, overlapping expanses of deep violet and profound black, their edges blurred like smoke dissolving into the air. You might feel an unprecedented sense of weight, yet strangely, what follows is a primordial, overwhelming tranquility, one that could almost move you to tears. This enigmatic power belongs to the 20th century's greatest master of abstraction, Mark Rothko. Tonight, by the soft pulse of the hearth, let us journey through his true life with this story, one you need not labor to remember. He was the man who imbued color with a sense of the religious, the sorcerer who transformed the canvas into an outlet for the soul. Yet, at the very zenith of his fame, within that solitary studio thick with the scent of oil paint, he chose the most final of ways to bid the world farewell. Was this a martyrdom for art, or the inevitable return of a soul seeking ultimate purity? On this restful night, let us ripple across the currents of time to feel the authentic pulse of Mark Rothko behind those looming fields of color. Mark Rothko's life seemed destined from the start for an inward migration. Born in 1903 into a Jewish family in Tsarist Russia, his childhood memories were steeped in upheaval and bitter cold. When he followed his family across the ocean to America, his only luggage was a profound trepidation toward this new world. He hawked newspapers on the streets of Portland and endured the alienation of identity at Yale University. In his early years, he attempted to capture the numbing crowds of subway stations and the tragic heroes of ancient myth upon his canvas. Yet, he always felt those figurative outlines were too heavy, they shackled the truths he yearned to express. He began a frantic process of subtraction, erasing features, erasing backgrounds, and eventually, even the horizon itself. Finally, he discovered that when all narratives are stripped away, leaving only pure color to interweave, float, and breathe upon the canvas, beauty attains a truly transcendent piercing power. This retreat was, in essence, a gentle yet total departure from a clamorous world. He no longer wished to tell the audience what had happened. He only wanted them to stand before him and experience that moment of being tenderly enveloped by light. If color was his language, then this ultimate purism was the weapon he wielded against mediocrity. In the New York of the 1950s, Rothko became the darling of the art world, yet he grew increasingly like an ascetic. His days typically began with prolonged periods of silent meditation. He would sit before his easel, staring for hours on end without uttering a single word. He refused to title his works, assigning them only cold, clinical numbers. He feared that a name would impose a psychological hint upon the viewer. He wanted everyone to see an original projection of their own deepest subconscious. Though he married several times, his most intimate companions remained his canvases. In search of a red that could truly breathe, he would dilute his paint to its very limit, applying wash after wash in flat layers. Some works were composed of hundreds of these translucent strata, a thickness that was not merely physical, but a cumulative sediment of time and emotion. He once said, "I paint very large pictures, precisely because I want to create a state of intimacy. A large picture is an immediate transaction, it takes you into it." This obsession with immersion allowed him to construct a force field of his own. Within this field, there was no New York clamor, no financial calculation, only a communion as silent as the deep sea. However, the hermit's lofty detachment inevitably clashed with the powers of reality. In 1958, the restaurant at the Seagram Building extended an incredibly seductive commission to Rothko, inviting him to paint murals for the most luxurious dining room in New York. It was a sum vast enough to secure his comfort for the rest of his days, yet when Rothko visited the site, he was seized by an unprecedented fury. Watching the affluent elite clinking glasses under expensive lights, he realized his masterpieces would be reduced to mere background decor for the ostentation of wealth. He told a friend with biting indignation, "I hope to paint something that will ruin the appetite of every son of a bitch who ever eats in that room. Let them feel they are facing a judgment before God." Ultimately, he made a decision that stunned the nation. He returned the deposit in full, reclaimed every completed mural, and eventually donated them to the Tate Gallery in London. This act, choosing poverty to safeguard the dignity of art, rendered him both eccentric and hallowed in the eyes of the world. He was like a priest guarding a sacred flame in the desert, refusing to sell that fire to passing merchants as kindling for a barbecue. Yet, it was this very moral fastidiousness that caused the island of his heart to shrink, while the surrounding waters grew ever colder. Rothko's final years were eclipsed by deep melancholia and physical ailment, yet it was in this very moment that his art reached its divine peak. When the de Menils of Houston commissioned him to design a non-denominational chapel, Rothko realized this was the destiny of his life. Into the structure known as the Rothko Chapel, he poured his final lifeblood. Colors were no longer luminous, they were replaced by somber purples, dark crimsons, and a black that seemed to absorb light itself. These paintings were no longer mere pigment, they were like dark portals to another dimension. By this time, enfeebled by heart disease and severe depression, his body had reached its limit. He became exceedingly sensitive, eventually unable to bear even the visits of close friends. On a bleak morning in February 1970, within that cavernous New York studio, Rothko ended his life. He lay in the shadow of his final canvas, still surrounded by the colors he had pursued all his life, colors as profound as the abyss. He left few words behind, for he believed all answers were already written within the blurred edges of his color fields. He was like a candle burnt to its end. Though the flame was extinguished, the searing fragrance lingered in the air, long and haunting. As we look back at the life of Mark Rothko through the long veil of years, it is impossible not to be healed by that ultimate authenticity. He demonstrated a possibility, that a person can, solely by guarding their inner light, sustain such a vast spiritual territory within this chaotic world. Although he met a solitary end in reality, he achieved an eternity that transcends life and death within those breathing fields of color. Today, in the Rothko Chapel, people from all corners of the globe sit in silence every day. They weep before the paintings, they pray before them, and ultimately, they find a long-lost peace. Our story for tonight has concluded. May the sensitive and magnificent soul of Mark Rothko finally find rest in that dimension where there is no clamor, only pure color. And on this tranquil night, please lay down all your attachments and burdens. Let your thoughts, like Rothko's colors, slowly spread and soften, becoming hazy and boundless. In that warm and vast sea of color, you will find a gentle outlet of your own. Good night.